Okay, it's Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025. This is a special meeting of the Policy Review Committee. I'm Bill O'Brien, Chairman, and first call to order, we do have a quorum. And I need a motion to accept the minutes of March 19th.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, passes unanimously. And let's see, our first proposed revision is policy 5113. Samantha's not back, right?
No.
Is there any other discussion on that? Or are we still waiting for more information?
I think Sam was getting a little bit more information for you guys, so you'll need to put that one on until next.
And we do have this chart that I guess somebody will refer to. But there's more to it?
Yes, I believe so.
So just table that for today?
Mhm.
Okay, the proposed student nutrition and physical activity.
Yes.
That's
I'd be
what you're here
happy
for,
to give you
Pam?
some information, yes. As one of my fun duties involving the food service program, the state heavily regulates what we need to do, and part of our state obligation is something called a triennial assessment. And it required us to put together a district wellness committee, which we did. We had about a dozen people serving on it. And we did have representation from the board with Sean Kennedy, as well as some community members, some faculty and staff. And we met and went through the current school wellness policy, and we worked through the recommendations from the state. And they actually worked through the Yukon Rudd Center. And we had specific areas that we needed to address and change within this policy. So for the most part, the policy itself is pretty much the same tone of our previous one, but we added some necessary language changes, and we really took a focus on our goal of additional physical activity. You'll see that on the first and second pages. We have schools will work towards providing 60 minutes of physical activity daily for students as a best practice. And we did have a couple of new sections added under goals for physical activity, nutrition guidelines for food sold in schools. And this actually mirrors the healthy food certification policy, or I should say the statement that the board approves every year. And also the marketing and monitoring sections are new. And the evaluation of the wellness policy is actually a requirement from the state as well, so that was added in here. So we now have a very comprehensive policy that we believe, we being the members of the wellness committee, believe it actually supports the goals that the state has set forth, as well as the goals of the district. So we're hoping you will approve it so that it can move forward for final approval by the board then. I'm happy to.
I'm just jumping in, that I have also read it. It does align exactly with what we need to do for the state. So if there were any recommendations, it would have to be minimal, because we want to make sure it's aligned with our requirements.
Just of interest,
Sure.
Certainly nutrition and physical activity, but given mind, body, nothing about mental health was required. I'm not saying you left it out.
It wasn't specifically.
It was not.
No. Again, this is really tied to our food service program, so I
Right.
think that's why it's a wellness policy. It
Towards
should probably,
nutrition.
yeah, basically on nutrition.
Thank you.
But I agree, it probably should have been body and soul, but that's not.
You know what I mean, that
Required.
seems
I
to be
do.
the approach, the whole person, you know.
Agreed.
And how about 60 minutes of physical activity daily? Is that even doable?
It's our goal, and we talked about this at Cabinet, and I truly do believe that all of our building principals would love to see that, because I think you'd see a big difference in our students. And we are hopefully working towards it. We don't see that happening anytime in the immediate future, but I do think the the extension of the school day may in fact help a little
Yeah,
bit with
and you
that.
have some schools that are already on track to working towards, movement hallways, so there's like, you know, touch the wall here when you go by, do a sit here, you know, you see that a lot at Second Hill Lane. They have a lot of, movement and activities within their hallways. You know, and we do encourage the kids obviously at recess, it is only 20 minutes.
I was gonna say next year it's gonna be 40 minutes for special, I believe. So with that, with the 20, we're
Yeah.
doing the 60.
You're a total of 60 right there.
That's right.
60 minutes daily?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So everyone gets PE every day?
not PE every day, but you know they get the 20 minutes, and one of the incentives, at least on the elementary level, is additional recess. So kids do earn a lot of that.
And they're moving in music as well, it doesn't have to be.
Movement and music, and they do a lot of energizers throughout the day
Okay.
too. So those energizers are physical movements between subject areas.
Yes.
So yeah.
Movement breaks, and I think, you know, middle schools and high schools probably aren't as on board with that, but you'll see a lot of the elementary schools are either doing
Yeah.
movement breaks, or they have
Yes.
movements in the hallway, or, you know, again, their music classes are not sitting still.
Right,
They are
right.
up, they are standing, they are active, they are moving. So,
That's
we're
good.
probably close, it's a great
We
goal,
are.
it
Yeah.
really
It's
is.
a necessity, especially on the elementary level. We gotta
Good.
get to moving.
It just seems like with your schedule would be tough to do. But
You
it
know,
makes
it-
sense what you're saying.
Even when the students come in through morning meeting,
Yeah.
you know, there's plenty of opportunity within there for them to do stretch breaks and to, you know, be able to get their bodies up and moving. Some of your teachers even have flexible seating that have moving while they're working. So it's an encouragement, get creative, try to get that 60 minutes in.
And I think that was a recommendation in the anxious generation.
It is.
Was to create more
It is.
playtime for kids.
Yeah.
More movement, so I think it's a great goal, I think it's an achievable goal,
Is it grades K through 12?
technically, yeah, it's supposed to be moving. Right.
So we offer PE,
You're lucky because your kids
One
have to walk
semester.
across the world to get to the next class.
so passing time counts.
I mean, they're moving.
We're good then.
And so I know we've changed some of these, but I noticed his and her in a couple of, do we wanna keep that consistent with what we've done?
So Pam, we've consistently gone from he, her, she to they.
Okay.
And we've changed parent and guardian to legal custodian in anywhere that says that. So if you are comfortable with those changes, Teresa will make those.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I can see a he, she under monitoring.
Yeah.
There's quite a few, we'll go through and
Hmm.
correct them.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Would make a motion to send to the board with a favorable recommendation.
I move to send to the board with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thanks,
That's
John.
unanimous.
Yeah.
And a lot of work.
Thanks.
I was wrong. This is Sam's corrections. So I don't know if you want to go back to it.
Or do we wanna wait for her to come and explain them, or are they,
She can come next time if you want to wait and explain them, but those are her changes.
are you okay with us waiting until next time?
I'm okay with that. Yep.
Okay.
Why don't we do that?
I just didn't want to do their work, so.
I have some questions about that as well, so I'd love to be, so I wasn't at the last one.
Right.
Okay, so proposed policy 1316, you're gonna do that one, Heather?
Yep.
And Pam, you're excused if you wanna go.
Okay,
Thanks, Pam.
thank you.
Take you home before it gets dark.
I think I have a little time tonight, but thanks.
Thanks, Josh. So this one is, we're up to the second read, right, for you guys for this one?
I think so, right?
Yes. I believe so, last time as well?
I had a
Thank
note
you.
in mind
Yeah.
to check it, because it wasn't in my book, but it was online, so I don't,
On the board agenda, I think this one was just coming back this time, you just introduced it last time.
I introduced it, so now, you know, if you guys have any suggestions, but again, the reason behind this, is, especially in the spring, is we see an uptick in vandalism, and we wanna be able to hold people accountable, with reasonable expectations that can be implemented. So,
and this is an existing policy.
we updated it.
Okay. Is it, so you have an updated version over there, or?
This is the new, this is the one I'm recommending,
Okay, and that's over there?
130 to 16.
I printed mine offline, so it would be different than.
Possibly.
Okay.
was Lloyd's language.
Right. Heather, what kind of vandalism occurs?
They wreck sinks, they might write on, sometimes they like to draw
Okay.
pictures that are not appropriate. The more damaging ones that cost money are when you rip the paper towels off or you break the sink. Those are the ones that, really cost us a lot of money. Some of them, we redid a basketball court and somebody scratched in a inappropriate symbol.
Yep.
Symbol. So basically, you've just added two small word changes?
Yep.
I just one question on it real quick.
Mhm.
Number 7 on the first page, smoke or use tobacco products. Does that include
Vapes.
THC vapes?
Should,
There's no tobacco in it?
well, there's something else in it.
Well,
Should we add that, or
Probably.
I think the
Because
more
it's just a
specific, the
nicotine
better.
better,
Yeah.
yeah?
just a nicotine vape, someone could say, well,
Yep, I would say any substance in your vape. We don't allow vaping.
Yes, no.
Along those lines, under number 8, consume, possess, distribute, or be under the influence of alcoholic beverages or illegal drugs.
Right.
It could also include, like gummies or what's
I mean, that is-
legal
that
but
is an
mind
illegal
altering.
drug.
yeah,
Right.
and that
So
is under
illegal
the
drug
influence,
covers them
yeah.
all. You got the
It-
Doritos, you got the gummies, those are all
Everything.
illegal drugs. Yep.
Bundle it in, okay.
They're illegal because they're used by an underage individual? or-
On our school grounds.
But it's not illegal
Right.
for an adult to use them, but it's
But
illegal
it is illegal
for an
kids to use
underage
them.
kid. Okay.
Got it.
What about,
Well, this says no person on school property or at a school event shall.
And they shouldn't,
But
should.
on
Right.
Even if
school
they're
grounds,
adults.
even if they're an adult,
Yep.
right?
on school grounds.
Right. On school
But for
grounds,
them,
you
it's
cannot.
legal.
But it's not on school
Not on
grounds.
school
It
grounds.
is
Not on
not
school
legal
grounds.
to use it on school
School
grounds.
grounds.
So if you are an adult who brings a vape pen with marijuana in it to school, and you use it on school grounds,
Mhm.
you are going to get in trouble.
Got it. Okay.
Even like a person who can carry a weapon, they can't bring, even they have a license, they
A
can't,
permit, but I see what you're
they
saying.
can't
The
bring.
carve out is school ground.
Yeah, school grounds.
Okay. Got it. Do you wanna expand that to, sanction school trips or,
That might be a good idea. Field trips.
I mean, there-
Had that happen.
That's very
that
good.
could be kind of fun to
Yeah.
tack a little something in, yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Which line do we think that should go on?
I would say, based on above, the board expects that no person on school property at a
Yeah.
school event or school sponsored.
That's
Yes.
perfect.
Trip.
Yeah, perfect.
Good.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So,
Did you get that, Teresa?
I did.
Okay.
alcohol is not illegal?
It's illegal on school grounds.
Is it illegal, that's a state law, it's illegal to have on,
School grounds. There's a drug-free school zones.
okay. So alcohol would be included in that?
That is, yep.
So a
Or-
vape, a
or
vape
school.
pen, but a vape pen with marijuana in it, is that illegal to bring to school? Is that,
For a student, yes.
how about for a teacher?
We
And-
would strongly
We certainly hope they
discourage
don't.
it, and we hope that they don't, but technically, if you are not using it and it was locked in your purse, and you are not under the influence, most likely,
Do we wanna highlight a policy that says,
I think that falls under your code of professional responsibility,
yeah.
right?
But would we wanna even, it probably does, but do we wanna call it out in here that says, I don't know, because alcohol and marijuana are not illegal for adults, but do we wanna
So
say?
you would have I think you would have a hard time, and I'll give you an example that maybe won't be so triggering, right? Someone's a smoker, right? They can't smoke on school grounds, but they might have their cigarettes in their pocketbook, locked away, right? It's an illegal substance on school grounds for you to use it, but you're an adult here, and I expect you to keep those away and locked until you leave school grounds to go. And it is, again, marijuana is now legal for adults.
Mhm.
So if it is locked away, and now again, it came out, if a student saw it, if, you're going to end up in trouble. right? So if that's a case where our principals would be calling somebody in, or they would, you know, be down in HR, or there would be a consequence, but that's your professional responsibility to make sure that you are living up to that. What would I suggest? Don't bring them to school at all, right? But if you are gonna bring them to school, it needs to be locked away in a safe space that is not accessible to children. I don't know if we'd win that battle, is what I'm saying, Mike, because, you know,
I wonder too if, again, under number 8, consume, possess. I mean, if you possess, as you're pointing out,
right,
that's problematic as well.
right. And I will say this is geared towards the kids, right?
Right.
Kids can't possess it on grounds.
Right.
If a kid possesses it on grounds, they're gonna hit the code of conduct violation. We do expect our adults to model behavior.
And that refers to alcohol and illegal drugs, but
Yes.
not necessarily.
And again, the alcohol, great example, right? I may bring a gift to my secretary for Christmas, that's a bottle of wine. She's not getting in trouble, she's not opening the wine here. I'm giving her a gift, I'm an adult, I'm doing it responsibly, it's not in front of children, it's being put away. So it's hard to do hard lines that, you know, as adults, we're just asking you to be professionals. If you cross that professional line, you'll be in speaking to me about your code of professional responsibility.
So we can get the gift, not open the gift.
Right.
We also have other policies that address smoking, drinking, use of drugs in school premises for the adults.
We do.
Yeah.
This one's really good
For
for
the
students.
students,
Okay.
yeah, that's what I was. I think nice job, it was comprehensive. I do like the addition that Jack suggested,
Yep.
that you suggested about the off trip, so that's good.
And Teresa, correct me if I'm wrong, but we had Floyd look at this too. We had Floyd look at this as well,
Yes.
right? I just wanted to make sure I had the right one. So I think we're in a good spot. We can make some of those adjustments, but I do think it would be helpful for our principals to have an updated policy in hand, especially with spring right here.
This won't be updated to the board votes on it.
Right, Monday's board meeting. That's why I'm saying if you want to put it forward, then I can get it on the agenda for Monday.
You can make a motion to send to the board with a favorable recommendation.
I second.
Okay, further discussion, I want to mention one thing, I can't help but think about the after-school events that are not school events, like Sterling House using Worcester or Chapel for basketball. And how does this apply at all to them? Because,
Listen, schools are drug-free school zones.
Right.
Like, regardless of who's using them, people should not be
Right.
partaking in the use and activity of drugs on your school grounds.
and even smoking on a weekend soccer game at the field,
They're not supposed to be doing
that was always an issue I had to deal with, and
Right.
we always had to talk to people about that.
There's always gonna be ongoing issues that we'll have to deal with, people who tailgate before a
Right.
football game, but those are things we deal with
regularly.
when they come up, you know?
There's even a town rule about no dogs on the field during athletic events.
Right.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
That's another one.
Bill, just under discussion, just as we've done with others, and Mike pointed out, changing his, her to them.
Right.
They.
Yep,
Yep.
they can do that.
Okay, if no more discussion, all in favor for sending it forward?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, passage
Are we
unanimously. Good job.
requesting the board to do this in one, because the superintendent's requesting this to be ready for
I would like
spring?
that, unless there's like, obviously the board needs more time, they're gonna get more time,
I mean,
but
we can request, I'm suggesting we request it.
Yeah.
I don't see a reason not to, but if we get it in the pony this weekend and just make a note in there that that the superintendent's requesting a one read and pass.
So maybe even you could, tonight, send this to the entire board and just ask, like Chris said, that the superintendent actually waive the first read.
Just so we
But
can
if we give it
get
to
the
him-
policy in place for all the spring activities.
Sure.
And we give it to him today, it'll give him more time than the phone, so. And then they can ask, any questions.
I'll send out electronic this evening and then send it in the hard copy in the coming.
Thank you.
Teresa, I don't see the cell phone policy on this agenda.
Bill has it to pass out.
And then,
He's gonna go under the proposed.
Okay.
and then on the agenda too, if you could just make a note to remind me that,
Pass
su-
this.
superintendent's request on this policy,
I will.
waive the first read. Just so I don't forget, somebody will remind me, but.
My apologies for being late. I had a concern going on in my building with a student.
Students first.
Okay, so we go up to update proposal. Phil, you're gonna present on this?
Ready?
Yeah. Has everybody got a copy?
Everybody should have a copy.
You ready? Happy there's a couple. You go?
No?
And preface for this one, we're looking for an approval through everything by July 1st, right? So this is for next year, so you have time, so be thorough.
This is the culmination of the work of the cell phone task force. Over a dozen people, including 2 board members, Lisa Carol Fabian, Kristen Bedell, administrators, community members. Through the process, we talked with a leadership panel who came to meet with the group. We surveyed students. We got a lot of input, as well as did our own research. Some of us went to school districts that were trying different things to observe. And so we tried to create a policy. The final run-through was with the administrative team as to what they could actually implement within their buildings. This does not include the updates to the code of conduct, which would need to come with any changes to the policy. And I'm sorry I didn't highlight anything in red, so I'll try to highlight sort of the major changes. As you're looking at it, the 3rd paragraph down, I just wanted to note the paragraph that starts, the district strongly encourages. You'll see that in a number of places throughout the policy, that our statement is always that we encourage that phones, electronic communication, headphones, all this, stay at home. That's always going to be our recommendation. And if students, choose to bring them, they have to adhere to the school's policy, and that the school is not responsible for lost or stolen items. The key in the next paragraph is just the opening phrase, is that students may possess cell phones and other wireless communication devices. We are not saying that they cannot have them, but when they get to the school, they have to adhere to the policies. And as you can see below, the policy is broken down. We put elementary and middle school students together. The policy, the basics of that policy is it's away all day. You'll see, 3 or 4 lines down in the policy, again, it starts off by saying they may possess them. But however, all such devices must be powered off and remain completely inaccessible throughout the instructional school day. Students may store these devices in a non-visible, secure location such as a backpack or a locker, ensuring they are not on their person at any time during the school day.
The hard part for that one is that now the expectation is it can't be in your back pocket, right? It can't be on your person. And so that is an implementation need for both teachers and administrators. Okay, they can have them, but not on your person.
Even with the smartwatch?
Well, we did include smartwatches. We tried to include everything. We know that they're going to create some new device that's not on this list.
Right.
That's why we say it's
So
including
they
but
can't
not
wear
limited
them. Yeah,
to.
they can't wear them.
Yeah, and part of it came from anxious generation, right?
Right.
Having it on,
Well,
it's
yeah.
kind of buzz, it's a distraction,
Yeah.
it increases your
Yeah.
addiction
Yeah.
to the social media, so we are asking that they're off and away.
And a big part of this, I know Heather said, we have time. I think a big part of this is going to be the communication. And so we want to be able to get this out to the community, to parents, to teachers, as soon as possible. So they can plan and they can know ahead of time, hey, this is coming, this is new. And so they have time to ask questions.
And we're gonna, take over stuff in the summer and have conversations and coffee where parents can come in and talk about it and prepare themselves and ask any questions we want. And we're gonna have to update our code of conduct, because if we do violate it, there will be different consequences, right? But that's the expectation that we feel is appropriate based
For
on
that
all
age
the
group.
research and the committee and the task force and the work they did for elementary through middle school. It can't be on you.
Now, for the high school, again, it opens with that they may possess it. Provided, 4 lines down, provided that upon entering any instructional space, the cell phones, other devices are placed in the designated secure storage containers. High school students must keep their cell phones stored in these secure locations for the entire class period, including study halls, and including when a student temporarily leaves the classroom, for example, for bathroom use. So this will be an adjustment, especially there was a long discussion on study halls. So that will be new. but there were some very strong voices in the group that really thought if we're gonna do this, you know, you have to do it completely.
And Dr. Piazza had mental health professionals on this group, and they really advised that as hard as it's gonna be, it's better if we can just hold firm and get them out of their hands.
And there was discussion, you know, currently, in the past few years, they've had those, what they call the shoe tree,
Yeah.
you know, things. There were issues, you know, questions both from parents, from students, and from teachers about the security aspect of that, because they hung on doors in different areas of the classroom where anybody could just sort of come by. So we are looking at, we're researching the best, you know, there's tons of different variations out there, affordable ones, to put a container in each classroom, so when kids come in, they could be locked away. And it's also something that could easily be picked up and carried out in the event of an emergency. It could follow the teacher outside. Just one more point,
Yeah.
we did investigate the Yonder pouches as well. For the middle school and high school, the cost would be, I think it was $97,000 for cases that would last, you know, they wouldn't guarantee they'd last beyond 3 years, so we thought about that cost. And we also, you know, I visited schools, and I think another member of the committee visited some schools, and there's varying degrees of success in terms of how successful they were with kids leaving them home, damaging them, cracking, you know, finding a way around them, as well as, to me, the visit that I had showed me a lot of lost instructional time. Coming into the building in the morning, making sure all the kids are locked up, and then providing that time at the end of the day as well to unlock them all. So we sort of shelved the Yonder idea.
And I will say I was impressed this committee had a decent conversation regarding instructional time. Even with the addition of the 15 minutes, we're still one of the shortest school days in the state. So we have to really value our instructional time. So, you know, the pouches, the lock boxes, those seem much more efficient time-wise. We just have to man it and implement it.
And the only other thing we put in there too was, if you notice a couple paragraphs down on the second page, students are permitted to use their devices this is high school, in the hallways between classes and throughout lunch periods.
The only thing I might add to that would be, and to have them powered off before they enter the classroom. And the way I see it is the kids are gonna walk in through the door playing with their cell phone, they're gonna sit down in their chair, and then they're gonna have to power it off, so it's gonna be, you know, a 5-minute process.
Power it off on the way in.
Yeah.
We can add that into that first paragraph.
Must be, yeah, powered off before entering the classroom.
Yeah, because we don't want a bunch of them going off.
Yeah.
Part of the healthy discussion that I think was a good compromise is that we also want kids to be prepared to live in the world, right? We're trying to make a portrait of a graduate. So that's why you have that gradual release at the high school level with some responsibility, right? Responsible use. We're saying, go ahead, check your phone real quick, in your 7 minutes you're walking from one class to the other, or use it in the cafeteria. But in an academic space, you are not. And so we're gradually trying to teach that skill instead of completely away from you. So that was the big debate, because we talked about whether we just do a uniform or whether, you know, you start to teach the skill we want them to have when they actually graduate.
What kind of a reaction did you get from parents?
Yeah, it was mixed.
Yeah.
And I will say we even had school employees who were parents in the district who voiced concerns of wanting to have that contact
Yes.
with their children during the school day. So again, it'll be about communication. You know, we talked about, you know, we're gonna have to communicate to parents if they want to get in touch with their kids, what the proper methods are. If there was an emergency in your child's building, what are the procedures? How are we going to get news to you, and how are you going to be able to check on the safety of your children? So that's part of another task force, the communication task force, which we've worked on putting together parent handbooks and principal handbooks. So that's, you know, they're going to kind of work in tandem in terms of that, because I think that was the biggest concern in the case of an emergency. How am I going to know my kid's okay?
Right. It's also managing the parents' anxiety. Is what's- You know what I mean?
And this is a flexible.
Their attachment issues.
They did a really nice job making this flexible, because very well, the governor could come out with a ban on cell phones, right? So the only thing we would be adjusting in this policy is you now can't have it in the hallway or in the cafeteria. So it's a good policy either way he goes, because originally at the start of this year, it was supposed to be, you know, he was gonna ban it, and then he rolled it back and said, it's guidance, it's not a mandate. And it could be a mandate next year, but this will work if it is, because that will be the only update or change that's needed to be made.
What kind of
Phil,
input did
quick
you get
question.
from students?
Chris has a question too.
Right, sorry. He asked about the impact, the feedback from students. It was interesting, we gave them a survey, and a lot of the questions in the survey were about how distracted they were, how often they're on it. And really what came out of the data was a clear understanding that they don't see it as a distraction. Like it's really just part of their day-to-day.
Yeah.
So I think there's gonna have to be, you know, some education, and maybe they'll come to these conclusions after a year of this policy. Maybe it would be interesting to poll them again to see what the impact has been without having their phones on them all the time. So it was really interesting. They really didn't see it as a problem. They're, you know, having their phones. Sorry, yeah, you did.
On the principal side, what do you see on the teachers in their seeing new responsibility, which could be a financial responsibility of could seeing themselves as possibly financially responsible for those phones, and if something should happen to a phone while it's being stored in their classroom. Because I'm in an elementary, I don't see it. I'm seeing a third grader right now in my room with a phone. I'm like, are you kidding me?
I'm gonna pass that to Pam the next time she's at this meeting.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things, you know, we kind of operate under this now with has to be either away or hanging in the calculator holder. I would say the teachers are probably 90% effective with it.
But what happens
If we have to add
yeah.
smartwatches to it, that's gonna be an interesting piece, right? Because
So that's why we put the line in there, Chris, that says that you bring your phone or electronic at your own risk. If
Yeah,
it
we're
gets
not
lost
responsible
or
for
stolen, we are not
damage.
responsible, and we suggest you keep it home. So if you bring it in and it goes in a pouch and somehow it gets lost or damaged, according to the policy, it's not on
it's
us.
gonna be like any other policy. It's gonna be.
I just want to make sure it's not. It doesn't land in. It doesn't land in the
Well,
teacher's
I
lap.
think we're gonna have to reassure teachers that they are not gonna be held personally
You will
responsible.
not be held
For
personally
any device.
responsible.
And what we do, if there's a student, it doesn't happen often, who refuses to put their cell phone away, we handle, or a climate specialist handle, we ask the teacher just to call.
Yes, yeah.
It's not worth getting into that power struggle in the classroom.
Yeah, and we will, again, part of our rollout and communication, parents will know and understand, if your child refuses to put it away, here's the consequence they're gonna get, right? And if they bring it to school and it gets damaged, that is a responsibility of you, right? We are hoping kids don't bring them to school.
The last piece I just wanted to go over, because it's a change, is under the other acceptable uses. One of the things that came up from teachers was like, well, I use this in my classroom, or what if I wanted to use it, you know, in a lesson? And it's just gonna become part of the procedural, part of the procedures to request permission from the principal, or the principal's designee, an administrator of the building.
Yes.
To say, hey, I have this lesson coming up, I wanna be able to use, a lot of times,
QR
this
code.
was coming from art teachers, you know, who like to take, you know, videos or create these different things. It's just gonna become part of the procedures to get that written permission ahead of time. What we don't want is teachers making that call and just using it, and then that's how things get loose. And then it's like, well, this teacher lets me use it, this teacher doesn't,
Right.
and it becomes a, you know, sort of where we are now, where it's inconsistent. So that will be a new part too, that we'll have to, you know, just make a quick form. It could be a Google form that goes to the principal that, you know, with the date and a description of the lesson, and then the principal decides whether that's acceptable or not.
And then you have a pretty extensive the last time. if you
Do we want
look
to
at
create?
that.
Do we want to create the form and add it to the policy, like we did the field trip form?
I could do that.
That way, it's all in one
Yeah,
place
it's
and
gonna
it's
be simple
consistent
stuff.
across.
Some of the things you might see in a 504 plan, Jack just brought it up, that if you have
Medical
diabetes
stuff.
checked, if you have a heart issue and your watch monitors your heart issue, so those will be in 504 plans. Those are now tied to Power School, they'll be redlined and noted right on the kids' Power School.
Are middle schoolers still using their backpacks around the building? No.
No.
Some of the things I will need from principals, and Dr. Piazza and I will send it out, is just if you're gonna be using your lockers and you need your locks updated or you need something fixed, we need to know that. Because we don't wanna run into that issue either. So at the secondary level, you know, I know sometimes there's concerns around whether the lockers lock.
Yep.
Where does Stratford stand with this policy in comparison to, you know, our local districts? What are you seeing in?
Depends on what you refer to as a local district.
Okay.
Okay, some of the districts that have really high ability for funding
Yes.
have done some really innovative things. They have yonder pouches, and on the outside of their building are the releases and the pins, so kids don't even come in. They lock and unlock, and they let the kids take them home, because it doesn't affect them when the kid loses a $15 yonder pouch. It would affect us.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I think we're in line with the idea behind that most of the districts are saying these need to be off and away.
Okay.
Right? And some of the bigger districts that are struggling, you know, like we are financially, you know, I had a lengthy conversation with Stanford, they're off and away. That's, you know, where they're at, that because they can't afford to go buy
Mhm.
X number of yonder pouches for every school. You know, and next door in Fairfield, they use the shoe pouches. Kids have to go put them in the shoe pouches. And for middle school and elementary school, they're not supposed to be on their bodies. So I think we're in line. We went and saw the towers, you know, the
Yep.
box carrying
Yeah,
towers.
Dr. Diorio and I are part of a assistant superintendent's group, so we ran it by them, and it seemed like most of them are doing, you know, something that, we're doing here. I'm part of another email chain of other assistant superintendents, and again, some of the larger districts are purchasing the yonder,
Yep.
but most are away all day, is sort of their
And
policy.
the little
Yeah.
carry, what do you call them, like carts and where you can put them in and lock them away,
Yeah.
were less expensive. It was like
Yeah.
$10,000.
I'm calling them lock boxes.
Lock boxes. It was like $10,000 versus $97,000. So it's a big difference, you know, for us. But I will say the debate between that and the pouches is those would be more time consuming. If you're putting it in and you're locking it, it's gonna take a little more time than if you're just dropping it in a pouch.
So to hand them all back out.
Right, and then you gotta hand them all back out, and who
Yeah.
holds the lock, and, you know, so sometimes those things would take away from the amount of time, but, and again, this policy doesn't, we'll decide that, right? We'll decide which type of holder you use, but they're gonna be away. At the high school level, they will be put in a holder of some sort if they are on your body.
The first day of the task force meeting, we sort of discussed what's our goal here. Is our goal to solve the social media problem of society? Or are we tasked with looking at creating a greater focus in our kids while they're in our buildings? So we decided to handle our in-house problem and not the global issue, but acknowledging that it exists. I mean, it played a big role in a lot of our conversation about what's going on, what's out there, what kids are exposed to.
And the skills you want them to graduate with.
Right.
I loved hearing that. It's important, you know, so I do think they did a decent job. I do think this is one of the ones where you guys really should read it, and maybe Dr. Piazza can join us again next month.
Absolutely. And again, the biggest concern coming from parents was the safety issue. Nobody's arguing that they don't want their kids, they don't want their kids on their phones all day. But I want to be able to get them in the case of an emergency.
That was the other cool part about the lockbox, although it would take more time, if there was ever an evacuation, that teacher can grab that and take it with them. Then when they get outside and they're in a safe location, you're able to unlock and give the kids back their phones. It's harder to do that with a pouch.
None of us had phones when we were kids.
I know.
We never had things happen in schools
Right.
that happen in the schools today.
Time has shifted.
How
So-
true.
So that's
So we
that's
validated those feelings, you know, because they're all real, right? And we're trying to navigate a complex issue, and we aren't gonna solve the problem globally, right? But we need to have our structures in place and commit to them and know we can implement them. And I felt really good about this. I thought your task force did great.
And maybe too, Chris, part of the reason why we didn't have those is because we didn't have those cell phones and such widespread access to that.
You'll appreciate the fact that
unfettered
Internet
information.
we took out language around beepers and camcorders and CD players.
Also the
It's a little bit of a flashback,
That's
just
everything.
looking at some of those things, but we updated the language.
And that
So-
was reality at one point too.
Right.
We have all that equipment, and now it's all one.
Yeah.
So, just so you know, just from a timing perspective, if we come back, bring it to the May meeting, then we can have it on the May's board meeting, and then our second read, which I would not be in favor of waiving the first read,
Yeah.
would be the June 23rd
Yeah.
meeting.
Which is perfect.
If, assuming we can get it through, and, you know, I guess at the first meeting, we can gauge the public outcry if there is any, and have to maybe do something different. But the June 23rd would be kind of tight to the timeline of July 1, so, and then July, we typically don't meet, but.
And we know what you're working on, right? So Dr. Piazza isn't gonna let the work just stop and sit while you guys are doing it and the board's doing it. He'll begin talking with the principals and having them prepared that if this passes with the board, here's how we're gonna do this. We'll make sure we update our communication guidebooks. We'll be ready for the rollout.
Okay, but I just, it'll be,
Tight.
it could be tight. I mean,
Yep.
June 23rd is okay, assuming that things go.
We'll try not to have to ask you for a special meeting.
I'll do it, I'm all for it if it needs to get done.
It's so
But-
fraught with opportunity for research. Well, it's difficult to isolate a variable as to whether or not, is the learning, are their scores increasing? What's their relationship with social media? Is there anxiety diminished? I mean, there's just, it could be quite fascinating
Does
for somebody who wants
does
to do
bullying
a.
decrease in the building?
Thank you. Well, you know, if somebody wants to do a doctoral
Behavior
thesis.
incidents.
But even cyberbullying, you know, which is,
Yes.
and a lot of the stuff that, a lot of the antics, I think, have come from videotaping things that happen in school, and they're like, oh my God, I'm gonna get my 15 seconds of fame, so I'm gonna do this,
That is
you know,
correct.
absurd thing, so somebody can put me up on Snapchat or whatever it's called.
Yeah,
Get your likes.
it'll
Yeah.
be
Is that
nice
the
to
number?
have
And get your
Stratford.
likes.
Stratford portray it as such with positive outcomes, intended positive outcomes, yes.
So another thought, and it's a little separate from this, but, you know, in the book, it had talked about creating groups of people who sign on. Would it make sense for us as a district to have parents sign on to a petition that say they're gonna have their kids do this? It talked about creating networks of cell phone-free kids, you know, against those, but maybe parents are making it public that, you know, hey, look, if you're adamant about not having your kid on social media until the age of whatever, 13, 15, you know, here's a petition you can sign on, we'll keep this as a public document, and you can go and pick out a kid who's your age group and create a play group or whatever it is, but.
Dr.
Oh, I see
Piazza
what you're
saw
saying.
some really
Yeah.
cool things too that we are exploring, that other districts are doing, to encourage putting the screen down and engaging in an
Yeah.
activity. And so those are that's gonna be part of this rollout.
Yeah.
You know, trying to get people to engage in those activities that create a group, you know, of like-minded people. And I told them, one of the schools I visited had little pivots on a table that just said a cell phone free zone. So if you're a kid who wanted to eat lunch in a cell phone free zone, you could choose that table, put your phone away and have a conversation with somebody.
So we could do things like that,
Opportunity.
you know, and, but I do remember that part of the book where, yeah, making it available to say, hey, my kid's cell phone free,
Yeah.
you know, so
Look-
parents aren't
look-
worried about their kids being
Yeah,
excluded.
excluded or, bullied, but finding other kids whose parents are like-minded.
And I think it'd be good, you know, our acceptable use policy to add something like this, like, you know, sort of just a line that says, by signing this, you agree to follow
Yeah.
the new cell phone
And I
policy.
think there's once we get a base, there's
Yeah.
lots of little things we can do to build on creating that capacity, you know, for the kids.
At Fairfield, at the elementary level, there's a moms group who started wait till 8, meaning no cell phones until they're in 8th grade. And so you got parental buy-in, and now they're getting people to sign petitions. And so they're making it like, this is cool.
Yeah.
So the kid that comes in with the cell phone in 6th grade, you know what I mean?
But
It's-
having that wait till 8, whatever it is,
Yeah.
now you have access to those names, so now you can have your kids play with kids who don't have a cell phone, so.
And you're right,
yeah.
it's an online group ironically, but yeah, they formed this group.
Well, that's-
with
It's
mission.
nationwide, actually. I think it's nationwide.
You've heard about it?
Wait till
That's
8.
an online-
Wait till 8.
Yeah.
Wait till they-
Yeah.
But so about 10 years ago, I used to, as the Appalachian Service Project, and so we would, with our church, the United Methodist Church, we would get a group of kids together, and we'd go to Appalachia and work on the homes. And the theme was warmer, safer, drier to create these homes, and we would stay at the schools. At these schools, there was no cell phone service. I would, every day, hop in a van just to check my work calls, and I would take a couple kids, and they would check on them. But the moment those kids got there, they started interacting with all the different kids in the group, like not just my friends, but the whole group. And the one year, we went to a school that had wireless access. Those kids, were just heads down on their phones. It was such a stark difference. And that was 10 years ago.
Wow.
You know, and that was before like really smartphones, so.
Yeah.
But it was just amazing what a difference it was. But when you took it away, the kids weren't crabbing that they didn't have it. They found something else to
I mean,
do.
it was definitely a hard-working task force, and it was polarizing, right, because there's very different issues, but I think this is solid. You know, give it a good read, give Dr. Piazza some suggestions or anything you think, and let's see if we can get this moving so that we can have it in place.
Nice job.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, well done.
All right, on the website, I'll send it over to the two of you.
Great, thank you.
You only saw his or her on the last page one place, and
Oh, I thought I got them.
just underneath the responsibility liability. You know, when I saw that. And what are we saying now about parent? Do we go with just legal guardian?
Legal
Yeah, I did not make any of those changes.
There's that one
So
parent
it
guardian
was-
there on the second page.
Instead of parent or guardian, we're doing legal custodian.
It looks good. Got some incredible work being done by these subcommittees.
They are doing a great job.
So we going to send this for a first read?
No, we're
you're-
doing the first.
You're doing the first.
Yeah.
So now we'll do a second read
Fine.
next meeting.
Right.
And we should probably be ready to send it for first read to the board in May.
Right.
You're still looking at this for 6 months placement.
Yeah.
Still working that out.
I'm not ready for your table item.
No.
Table to table.
So you guys had, Chris, I think your group had started looking at some of the AI affected policies. You had mentioned a list of maybe, I think it was you, 25 policies that were affected by our new AI policy.
Oh, we did notice a few. There was only electronic information security and electronic communication that
What
may
policy
be
numbers?
impacted.
What policy numbers were those?
3520.11 and 3543.31. Possible. It's worthy of review. And that was only the first 25 or 1/3 of this one.
Do you want to send those over to the AI task
Yeah.
force?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we'll
You
send
got
those over
those?
to the AI task force.
Okay.
They're already in. Is that it, just those two?
Yeah, for the first section of the, yes, so far.
I must have missed my homework assignment.
Do you want us to keep going on that?
Yeah,
I
please.
Okay.
totally
So-
missed that one.
Our group, let's continue. Okay, we left off at the 4,000s, let's continue. We did 1s, 2s, 3s, now we're going into 4s. And what we'll do is looking for any AI inferences so that it can be reviewed, is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. We can just break it up and get back to each other.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on any issue? If not,
I have one clarifying question.
yeah.
I'm sorry. Any policy we create can be more stringent than guidance from the state, correct? Or does it have to fall in line with it?
No, it can be more stringent. It can't be less.
Yes, that's what I anticipated. So I just want to say, in rebuttal to some of the conversations about the attendance policy, we have things in place in our attendance policy that are Stratford-based, not necessarily state-based. So holding kids accountable to be on class on time certainly helps support our mission of making sure students are attending class on a regular basis. I have to say this, the amount of student accountability we have this year, and parent, in the attendance policy, and having students reach out for hearings and to make up class time. I've never, in my 10 years at Stratford High, it's never been this high. We have kids that are coming before school, after school, in study hall to make up missed class time, as long as they schedule a hearing with us and with the parent. So while some of the language may not be in line with the state language, it supports our mission in Stratford. And like I said, I was under the impression when I worked with some of the high school principals on this, that our policy can be more stringent than the state, it just can't be less.
Right.
So before we make any changes to any attendance policy, I urge us to come together and talk about it, so that we don't, we were coming off a policy where it was 20 absences, and at 18, the kids were chronically absent. So we had a policy that allowed kids to be chronically absent by the state of Connecticut. We don't have that anymore. And I think, not to brag a little bit, it's certainly not just me, but we're down almost 16 or 12, 15, 16% of chronic absenteeism from last year. And I think it's a testament that we have a strong policy that holds kids accountable and families accountable to get their kids to school. So just for the next meeting, as we think about that table item, we could expect more than the state wants us to.
We are making great progress.
That's encouraging.
Yeah. And I have to say that for the middle school, what our numbers were 3 years ago to what our numbers are now, running about the 20% change, so we're in agreement.
Yeah. And I will say, as an overall benefit, Mr. Villapiano also has other great news today, that when kids are in school, sometimes your test scores go up, so.
Yeah, we did great on the, I mean, still have work to do, but we went up 43
Wow.
points in the SAT.
That's
I caution everyone as I say this, it is a test of individual students each year, so next year it's a new group of students. So we celebrate the success, but we just figure out what worked and try to keep doing more of it.
Awesome. That's
That's outstanding.
Great.
And then Jack was telling us last night at Monday's meeting, the math team's gonna come and do a little presentation for us. I don't know if you heard about the math team.
Well, not a
what they did.
presentation, they're
They
gonna
have
present you with a
They
challenge.
have
A
a
challenge,
math challenge
yeah.
for you.
I like it.
That team that just won.
Our math team were the state champs in a math puzzle contest in the state of Connecticut, which was pretty,
Great things happen
Pretty
in
impressive.
Stratford.
Yeah, kudos to Stratford.
Yeah.
Doing great. All right.
Okay, so we're scheduled for May 21st. That look good for everybody?
Yes.
So we'll stick with that. And with that, have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Thank you all. Another great meeting. Adjourned at 4:53 PM.